When it comes to hip-hop culture, family dynamics, and reality TV drama, very few relationships have been tested as much as Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin's. Their story has always been one of passion, loyalty, and turbulence, a bond that has survived industry pressure, countless rumors, and family disputes. But behind the cameras, behind the Instagram posts, and behind the love and hip-hop fame, lies a web of conflicts that reached a boiling point when Chrissy Lampkin and Jim Jones' mother, affectionately known as Mama Jones, clashed in a way that would shake their relationship to its very core. It all started with the years-long tension between Chrissy and Mama Jones. Fans of love and hip-hop New York remember vividly how Mama Jones never quite welcomed Chrissy into the family. She questioned Chrissy's intentions, her influence over Jim, and even her role as a future wife. Mama Jones would go on to create the infamous psychotic diss track aimed directly at Chrissy, a song that was as much a personal jab as it was entertainment. For Chrissy, it was an insult too deep to ignore, and for Jim, it was an impossible position to be caught between the two women he loved the most. But what many people didn't know was that behind the scenes, the friction wasn't just reality, TV hype, it was real. The disagreements continued long after the cameras stopped rolling. And like all unresolved family tensions, they eventually exploded. On that fateful night, Chrissy and Mama Jones exchanged words that would cross every boundary. Sources close to the situation claim that Chrissy confronted Mama Jones about meddling too much in her and Jim's personal life. Chrissy, who had stood by Jim for years without a marriage certificate, felt disrespected and undermined. She believed Mama Jones was the reason why Jim hesitated to take the next step and fully commit. The argument escalated quickly. Voices were raised, insults were thrown, and years of pent-up frustration came out in the ugliest way possible. Mama Jones, never one to back down, fired back with accusations saying Chrissy was controlling Jim, ruining his career, and alienating him from his family. For Chrissy, this was a knife to the heart. She had sacrificed her own dreams, invested her time, and even gone as far as proposing to Jim on national TV, only to be painted as the villain in his life story. According to insiders, the heated exchange spiraled so far out of control that Jim Jones himself had to step in. But instead of diffusing the tension, his involvement made it worse. Imagine being in Jim's shoes, torn between the woman who gave him life and the woman he built his life with. The emotional weight of that choice is unbearable, and on that night, it broke him. Eyewitnesses claim that Jim, overwhelmed and furious, did something nobody expected. In the middle of the chaos, after Chrissy allegedly lunged forward in anger toward Mama Jones, Jim reacted. And in a split second of rage, he raised his hand and slapped Chrissy. The room went silent, the energy shifted, and the shockwaves of that single action would ripple across their entire relationship for Chrissy. It wasn't just a physical sting, it was betrayal. The man she defended for years, the man she fought alongside against public scrutiny, had chosen violence instead of protection. For Mama Jones, the moment was confirmation of everything she believed, that Jim was being driven to his breaking point because of Chrissy. And for Jim, it was an immediate regret. What followed was chaos. Tears, screaming, disbelief, a family imploding in real time. Friends who were present tried to separate everyone, but the damage had already been done. In that moment, Jim Jones had crossed a line that no relationship, no matter how strong, can easily recover from. But here's where the story gets even more complex. This wasn't just about a slap. This was about years of unresolved family trauma, control issues, and the toxic triangle that had been building between Chrissy, Jim, and Mama Jones. Each one had their own narrative, their own truth, and their own wounds. And while the slap was the climax, the real story lies in the events that led to it, the power struggles, the public embarrassment, and the private battles that fans only saw glimpses of on TV. So the question became, could Chrissy ever forgive Jim? Could Jim ever forgive himself? And most importantly, Could Mama Jones and Chrissy ever find peace? Or was this the final straw that would tear the family apart forever? The incident didn't stay hidden for long. Whispers began circulating in the industry, blogs picked up on the story, and soon the streets were buzzing with speculation. Fans wanted to know, was it true? Did Jim Jones really lay hands on Chrissy? And if so, what did it mean for their future together? The answers weren't simple. What followed in the days, weeks, and months after would prove that this incident was not the end of the story, but the beginning of an even bigger battle for love, respect, and survival in one of hip-hop's most complicated love sagas. The slap wasn't just a moment of anger. It was the beginning of a storm that would follow Jim Jones, Chrissy Lampkin, and Mama Jones for years to come. When that hand landed, everything stopped. Chrissy was stunned, shocked not only by the pain, but by the betrayal. For years, she had defended Jim against everyone who doubted their love. And now the man she had sacrificed so much for had turned against her in front of the very person who never wanted her around in the first place. She left that night in tears. Friends say she didn't even pack much. She just walked out because she couldn't breathe under the weight of what had just happened. For a woman who had given over a decade of her life to Jim, who had fought to earn respect from both his family and the public. That moment was the breaking point. Mama Jones, on the other hand, felt justified. She had been warning Jim for years that Chrissy was too demanding, too controlling, too involved in his business. In her eyes, this was the proof. She told people around her that Chrissy had finally shown her true colors. That she was bringing out the worst in Jim instead of the best? What she didn't realize was that Jim wasn't proud of what happened. He wasn't standing tall as a man who had defended his mother, who was drowning in guilt. Behind closed doors, Jim tried everything to repair the damage. He sent messages, flowers, and gifts. He even admitted to close friends that he had messed up badly, that he lost control and might have destroyed the only real love he ever had. But Chrissy wasn't ready to listen. She had endured his hesitation about marriage, his long absences, the constant rumors about other women, and his mother's never-ending disapproval. The slap was the one thing she couldn't excuse. The story didn't stay inside their home. Within days, whispers spread around Harlem through industry circles and then out onto social media. Blogs ran with the rumor. Fans dissected every possible angle, and soon the public was divided. Some people called for Chrissy to finally walk away, saying she deserved better and that she had wasted her prime years waiting for Jim to give her the stability she wanted. Others defended Jim, insisting that the situation with his mother had pushed him over the edge, that he was under pressure no man should have to face. While the public argued, Chrissy stayed silent. For someone who was always outspoken, her silence was deafening. She didn't post indirect quotes, didn't rant on Instagram, didn't give interviews. She simply disappeared into the background. Her close circle said she was reflecting on everything her years with Jim, the endless fighting with Mama Jones, and the reality that she had put her own dreams on hold for a relationship that might never give her the security she longed for. For the first time, she truly questioned if it was worth it. Jim, meanwhile, tried to keep the spotlight on his music and business moves. He avoided directly talking about the incident, but dropped subtle lines in interviews about how love is complicated, about how families sometimes clash, and about how the public doesn't need to know everything that happens behind closed doors. Some fans saw that as him dodging accountability. Others believed he was trying to protect Chrissy from further embarrassment. Either way, the silence around the truth only made the rumors grow louder. Mama Jones made things worse. She started speaking in interviews about how she only wanted what was best for her son, about how she was painted as the bad guy when she was only protecting him. But those words fell flat. Younger fans accused her of being toxic, of meddling too much in her son's life, and of creating the exact kind of drama that exploded that night. Older fans, however, sympathized with her, believing that mothers have every right to protect their sons from relationships they don't approve of. The private battle between Jim and Chrissy stretched on for weeks, so pulled away while he tried desperately to pull her back in. Sources say they eventually agreed to sit down away from everyone else, away from friends, away from Mama Jones, just the two of them. That conversation was emotional, raw, and filled with years of pent-up feelings. Jim admitted that he hadn't been the man she needed, that he had avoided making a real commitment, that he had failed to protect her from the constant interference of his mother. Chrissy cried as she told him she was tired of waiting, tired of fighting, tired of feeling like she had to beg for respect. That night made them face truths they had been avoiding for years. The slap was not just a mistake, was a symbol of everything wrong in their relationship. The lack of boundaries with Mama Jones, the broken promises about marriage, the tension between public image and private reality. It all came crashing down in that one moment. In the end, the question wasn't just whether Chrissy could forgive Jim. It was whether they could rebuild from the ruins of what had happened. People close. To them say that even though they tried to move forward, the scar never healed. Chrissy carried the memory with her, and Jim carried the guilt. They continued to love each other, but love alone wasn't enough to erase what had been done. Fans still argue about it to this day. Some say Chrissy should have left that night and never looked back. Others say every couple has breaking points, and that forgiveness is part of real love. But the truth is, only Jim and Chrissy know why they stayed together after such a painful chapter. One thing is certain. That night changed everything. It forced Jim to look in the mirror and confront his own demons. It forced Chrissy to realize her worth and question whether she was settling. And it forced Mama Jones to see the consequences of her constant interference. What began as another family argument turned into a moment that defined their relationship forever. Because no matter how much love, loyalty, and history to people share, sometimes one act is enough to change the story. And for Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin, that act was a slap heard far beyond their home, echoing through the streets, the industry, and the hearts of everyone who had ever rooted for them. So, here we are looking back at a love story that has been as passionate as it has been painful. The question that still hangs in the air is simple. What would you do in Chrissy's shoes? Would you stay with a man who has given you years of love, loyalty in some ways, but also heartbreak and betrayal? Or would you walk away and choose yourself, after realizing that sometimes history isn't enough to secure happiness? Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin's relationship has always been a reflection of real life, messy, complicated, and filled with highs and lows. And maybe that's why people are so invested. It isn't a fairy tale. It's real, raw, and sometimes ugly. But one thing is undeniable. Their story forces us to ask deeper questions about love, loyalty, family, and respect. If you've been watching all the way through, you already know this isn't just gossip. It's about boundaries, about knowing your worth, and about understanding that no matter how much love you pour into someone, you can't pour from an empty cup. So what do you think? Was Chrissy right to stand her ground, or should she have forgiven Jim and tried to rebuild? Was Mama Jones protecting her son, or was she destroying his chance at happiness? And most importantly, do you believe love can survive something this damaging? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation isn't just about them. It's about all of us. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind the headlines, where love, loyalty, and drama collide.